Hello and welcome to Wake Up Our Faith, the show where passion, purpose, dreaming big, challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you today. Welcome wherever you are coming to us from. We're glad that you are here. As we all know, as you know if you're a regular listener, we record this show live on we have this show live, I guess, on Wednesdays on our social media platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. We're streaming, and then it is rebroadcast through a variety of different mechanisms. Our Rumble channel, our BitChute channel, our Telegram channel, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the above, so you can listen to us anywhere that you consume content and information. We appreciate you guys being here. Many thanks to Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 FM, and Joe Catanacci for producing today in the studio. My brother Kevin.
Hey.
Hey.
All right. Well, happy Wednesday/Saturday, Sunday.
All the above. My son asked me the other day, he said, "Hey, Dad, how did Milli Vanilli get found out?" And I was like, where did this come from? And apparently he'd overheard the conversation. And I said, well, the record stuck. And so it went, girl, you know. And the guy couldn't fake it. So, there you go. No Milli Vanilli here, man. The authentic, real deal.
Yeah, that's well, thanks, man. I want to be the one that's still alive.
You know where that comes from? That comes from a Frankism where I said people who believed Anthony Fauci are about as happy as Milli Vanilli fans.
Oh gosh.
Sorry, I had to.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
I'm not going to get you started. My apologies.
It's rotten, man. It's just all rotten, all that stuff. So we'll stay away from it. Just know that it's rotten. If you've tasted it or stuck your toe in it, it's okay. Come on back.
There you go.
We welcome you.
There you go.
We had some guy.
Almost
said to pull that up, but it didn't matter. Some guy reach out, I guess, through our website, and we called us idiots and Kool-Aid drinkers, and said we're misleading people, and so we're over the target, right?
That's right.
But anyway, happy today, and that's the day the Lord made, and we're going to rejoice and have fun with it.
Absolutely, be glad and have fun.
Yeah. Right.
So today's title is Jesus had faith, not a magic wand. And I just keep having this picture of like Jesus in Harry Potter outfit going, bless you, my son. I'm sorry. This is where my mind is today.
Yeah. Well, part of my own personality and you're a good partner in this is to break pretense.
Yes.
Laugh, enjoy, and be childlike. And so, if you can't laugh about some things, then you probably need to go back to square one, and pull Jesus out of the oil painting. And but today we're really talking about what it means to be like Jesus in three different ways. How do we imitate him? And I think the very first step is, and this comes from one of our texts. I'm just going to read it real quick because this is really, really important to grasp. And we can walk through the theology of it too if we need to. But here's the point today. So Jesus was and is God, but he did what he did on earth by faith as our model, not by magic wand, golden scepter, or even 10,000 angels. He made a choice as a man. And if we want to get beyond simply quoting him to actually emulating him, so must we. Being like Jesus equals living like sons and daughters. So that's our job, is to emulate Jesus. So we have to look at what was he modeling. And so, we need to walk through that and look at his faith instead of seeing him as, we need to look at the human being. And it's one of my favorite things to do.
Yes.
Is to really understand God was so good that he became man so that we could truly learn to trust him.
Mm.
And so we have to go there. It's really important. So that's what this is kind of about.
Yeah.
But he wasn't magic.
Well, and the problem or the situation that has been created with Western thought and theology and institutionalism is we deify Jesus because he was God, but they do it to such a way that makes him unapproachable and unrelatable and absolutely unattainable.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, it stays in the oil painting and it stays in the off yonder. And people use the excuse of, oh, well, that was Jesus.
All the time.
And so that's
every day, every hour, every minute.
I'm just a sinner, and that was Jesus. And that is the worst possible theology that you can have. It's not biblical.
Right.
And it needs some attention and addressing.
That's right.
Because it is massively flawed with human limitation.
Yeah. Yeah, if you are a believer in your heart, you have surrendered your heart, if you have done that, and you go into a church and you hear the pastor calling you a dirty sinner, you need to run. And I mean run quick. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
It's not true. We got to quit mixing all that stuff up. You're saved. You're his.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, right? Now you get on with the business of being his. That's the big stuff. That's the getting heaven into you. That's discipleship. So, yes, absolutely, Jesus is God, will always be. And his role in that was to save us, and he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's open to anyone with breath in their lungs who wants that. That is a different thing from his role as a human being, which he modeled sonship, sonship, daughtership, He pointed to the Father and did what the Father said to do. So his journey was one of faith. Jesus did not know everything when he was on earth. He did not know everything. He learned through obedience, suffering. He had to learn. So that's Scripture. It's in there. And it's amazing to me that God went to this length to help us come to him through faith, through relationship, through trust. So we have to separate those two things out. Just like you have to separate out, Paul does it really well, that the Father, Son, and Spirit, and we have to understand the distinctions. So this is not a theology lesson, nor will it ever be. It is a way for you to get on with while you're here.
Mm-hmm.
And but understanding the person of Jesus and what he is doing and saying and how we follow that requires that we get rid of the pretense of it all.
Yeah.
It wasn't pretentious at all, not one bit. I know a lot of people watch The Chosen, and I stay far away from a lot of that stuff because most of it's just not that great. But if you haven't seen it, you probably have, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and I've had a lot of people tell me for months, please watch it, please watch it. This is how you teach people to think about Jesus. But so, we plugged it in here and there, and one of the neat moments was just right in I think it was the third show, where the kid's playing with his tools, right? And they nailed it. I don't know about the rest of it. I'm sure it's pretty good. They color in a lot of things, and that's fine because who cares what the color the couch was in Mary's place or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the child and his reaction, you already know. If you're really his, when you see the kid playing how he's going to react. Because your relationship with him. And so if you haven't seen that, I'm just suggesting it, as I'm sure you have and many others have. So all that said, let's dig in.
It's funny, that scene you mentioned is my dad's favorite scene. And the series itself has done a lot for a lot of people that I know because, like we've taught, feel the word.
Exactly.
This brings the word to life in a really profound way. And I think it's very honoring and it's very kingdom focused. And there is a common heart with how we teach and how it is portrayed.
Yes.
And I can say that confidently because we've walked this out together for the last 5 years, and I see it and I go, yes. It invokes emotion. But that scene with the kids, it actually broke my dad down. And my dad was like, man, I just love this. And because it makes Jesus so relatable. And it makes him so real. And that's what church has not done.
Exactly.
For years.
That's right.
And so we are at a crossroad moment where Jesus is wanting to make himself known in this very approachable, very real, very realistic way. And he's never not been that way.
Right.
It's just we've been indoctrinated through a certain lens to not see him properly.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if you have read some of the things in my book, I mean, whoever it might be listening, I know there's we got a young fella right now who's he's just a great. I call him a kid. He's not a kid at all, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And man, he's just so hungry. He's such a rare breed. I told his dad, I said, he's like my own kid. You know, he's different, and he's hungry. And but he's reading my book, and I think he's terrified by it. But at the same time, he's doing it. Bless his heart. But there are moments in that book where you go, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that?" But that, if you watch that scene, then you'll know that's how I felt back then about God. But I had to go all the way to that place where I had let go, lost everything. So it doesn't require that, but it does require that you have to be willing to do that. And that's the difference. So when your dad sees that for the first time in his life and feels like he's come home, it's because he hasn't had that around him, although he deserved it, and his God made him to know that. There's a lot of people like that in a lot of different categories, whether they're 30 or in their mid-60s or whatever. That's our mission. That's what we want people to understand, but then live it out. That's the next step.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it.
Well, again, you said as kind of a caveat that this is not about theology, and I agree. We've never taken the stance of we're trying to teach theology, and we don't use words like that. But at the same time, we all live from a theology, whether we realize it or not, right? We all live from a worldview, from a perspective, from an indoctrination. And the essence of finding out the real Jesus is being willing to let go of everything that you've known to see him for who he is. And that is, in your story, that's the process of where your false idol, the God of, material abundance or trying to achieve or striving or whatever, that God had to be broken down. That theology had to be deconstructed. So whether it's going through what you walk through or somebody else, you have to allow the Spirit to deconstruct understanding, to deconstruct false idols and all these things in order to be able to experience the fullness of what God has. And so that is a foundational piece, in my understanding, for folks. They have to be willing to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't want to dig too much into that because and I'll run with it for 2 hours. So I think that I agree. For me, it wasn't wealth and material things. It was, excuse me, it was me thinking that I had done it in my heart. And I would tell people he did it. But it was a really, really subtle teardrop of pride, of pretense. So I just want to say that.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, you're right. People do come from a place somewhere of some learning, and God takes the core, the root of that's good and whole, and develops it, and we slough off or are pruned through the process. That's discipleship. Now we can be proactive about it. So this fella I mentioned earlier, it's been a couple years, and I know you guys have been getting together a little bit too, but. I told him the other day, I said, it's like we just fast forwarded 2.5 years. It's like the time didn't even happen. I said, can you see that? And he was sitting in my office and he said, yeah, yeah, it's crazy. What happened? here we are.
Mm.
So God's moving the pieces together,
Yeah.
and we can trust that. But we have to begin to understand how to navigate life the way that our model
He did.
And so going back to what you said about whether it's an indoctrination or a theology or whatever, negative or positive view of that, a type of faith. And we did a show on this, I don't know if it's a year ago, and you can probably go back and find it, but the way I would describe that process it would be when your parents help you, then you take on initially as a child the faith of your parents.
Mm-hmm.
So you begin to, and it's natural and good, and that's why having faithful parents is probably the first greatest blessing your life will ever have. And then you graduate to a level of taking on, and it's your own faith now, but that is where people get stuck. And that is, let's call it a spiritual teenager, if you will, but that is the faith in God, where you believe in him and you really believe. But then as you mature, as things change in your life, as you go through things and God prunes you and disciples you and tutors you through this wonderful process, and Paul is a great example of and then you take on. Now, this is like Jesus. This is where we begin to live like Jesus. This is where you have the faith of God.
Yeah.
So you go from of your parents to in God, your own faith, to of God, the faith of God. Now, that is what Jesus, the man, had in his Father, but it was of his Father. So just like ours is of our parents. So, I know that sounds like a deep thought or whatever, but it's really simple.
Well, it's a good trajectory to create this process of discipleship that must happen between every person to kind of come to a moment of personal relationship and decision, to being molded and strengthened and brought up to now you take on the faith of your Father.
You become a part of his legacy, and you live from that place outward. And that's what Jesus was doing. Jesus came here. In a sense, we come here. We are his idea. If you read Psalm 139, you can't get around this. He thought us up and put us here. So that means there's intention. All right, so rather than going through all that again, let's go back to our model, Jesus. So the no magic wand thing and all, it's just we're just being funny. One of them is he didn't fly around in a with a cape and golden underwear and it just makes you laugh.
Yeah.
But that's how silly it has become when you think about Jesus telling us who we are, that he's in us. We're on earth. He's in heaven, yet he's in us. He's at the right hand of the Father. And somehow we are in him, and he's there. So that is a unique, wonderful relationship. Again, so what that looks like on earth is what we're talking about, because that's what he modeled for us. He lived from the Father through him, and he did what he did by faith, not some kind of magical stuff. And that's why he said, you'll do greater things.
Yes.
Right? So it all adds up scripturally. All you have to do is study and you'll see it.
Well, that's the place where if you call yourself a Christian and you defer to the idea, well, he was just Jesus, you're literally rejecting the part of the Bible that says you'll do greater things.
You are.
I mean, so if you're a Christian,
right,
and you think somehow that you're not capable of doing greater things than Jesus did, you are inherently rejecting the truth of the Bible.
That's right. That's right. It is a form of rejection, denial, etc. It's not a good place to be. It doesn't mean there isn't grace. It means that you have to be moving forward. You can't sit still. We're not talking about rest and listening. We're talking about as God leads you, you must grow, or you will go backwards. So, all right. So the I guess, and I just made a couple of notes here and some thoughts, but Um, one of the important things to look at here is, uh, that process, uh, and Jesus. We tend to focus on his behavior. We look at the Beatitudes and the similitudes, and we walk through this laundry list, and we try to memorize them, and then we think, well, today I'm going to be a peacemaker. That's going to be what I am, and that's. I think people are wired a little differently, and we're all slightly different. We need to be the best possible version of that. But I think what we need to do is stop striving after good behavior, because that's not really what God's after, right? Look at David. So what he is after is our heart, right? So if our heart is willing, that's the common theme. All the people that are in this community that are thriving and growing, their businesses are doing well. I mean, I'm blown away. I see it over and over again. These are people with willing hearts, not perfect people, people with a willing heart. So when you have that, then what you see is imitating Jesus becomes a different thing. It's not about trying to force yourself into wearing a tunic.
Behavior patterns.
Yeah. So another one of the daily texts, another one says, imitating Jesus isn't about striving, but instead releasing the Jesus that dwells within us into the world around us. So if you just think about that, it lets all the pressure off. So whether it's your dad or you or me or my wife or whoever, wherever we go, or our children, we need to understand that wherever we go, we can just release him into the environment, and he will take over. And it's amazing. So it's just one little simple idea.
And we expounded upon that idea at our last Faith in Business. And it goes back to a show we did a couple weeks ago of navigating difficult relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept is that we, right, with an indwelling Jesus, are literally the contact point for other people to be able to experience him.
Right.
And that has very little to do with the things that we say, and more to do with the presence we carry, his presence, right? And how we make them feel, and how we help them encounter that thing.
Right.
And so that's where, there's such a profound call on the life of a follower of Christ to live in such a way. I was reading Ephesians 4 this morning, and this idea of we are brought to maturity, excuse me, to become that contact point, to set aside the former ways, to set aside the old self, to usher in his kingdom presence by how we live and breathe and what we say. And that's why it says put away idle talk, or put away, contradictory talk or negative talk, because you're not becoming a contact point and a conduit of his goodness. You're participating in the old ways and the worldly systems. And so it's not about the behavior, although the behavior is born out of the proper heart.
Right. Well, I mean, if you don't start in the right place, then you'll never land where you're supposed to. And David and Saul are a great example. David tearing Saul's garment is profound. I mean, this is just, this is nothing new. It's old, but most people don't know it. So we need to bring it back up. But think about the heart, the willing heart, the willing heart. God can work with that, and he works in that and through that. And that's what happens. It's a process. So things like idle talk or let your yes be yes, these things will happen. If you have a struggle with an addiction, you have to go back to the core. It's why I work with people all the time in those types of things. I don't need a bunch of letters behind my name. I have life experience. So, but the answer is always God. But it's not so quick and simple, because it means you have to walk with him. And that takes a challenge. So anyway, we have to grow into that and be patient. That's the thing. That's the cost that people typically don't want to exercise, and that is your time. It's easy to write a check. It's easy to go to a Sunday church thing.
A couple hours a week.
Yeah, and that's not bad, but it doesn't transform your life pretty much, and that's why the world looks like it does, despite the amount of churches that have been built in the last 500 years.
It's so funny. There's that passage in Acts where it says, "And daily they gathered to break bread and give themselves." Right. And our friend Claire, she's like, "I'm telling y'all, it's every day. We got to do this every day." And she's just always wanting to hang out every day because that's what it said. But
that's right.
There's an essence of that. I mean, that's what it said. They weren't engaged in a casual, let's visit a place once a week.
Right.
This was a lifestyle. It was their entire life.
Well, it's the whole thing. It's a puzzle piece, right? But it's the inference. It's worship in spirit and truth. Every day, all the time. Walk around with him in you. Let him out everywhere you go, where two or more are gathered. And we could go on and on and on and on. Jesus said, tear this temple down, and in 3 days I'll raise it again. And they didn't understand what he was saying. What he was saying was, he is the church. We are becoming the church. We are a part of that. So it's not about brick and mortar. It's about people. And when you engage people, the church is active, and there's different ways of there's worship and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that we could do 28 shows in 28 directions, but I think today that the main focus is understanding that Jesus wasn't some magical character out of a book. You like that?
It's so funny. He fought dragons. Like, I keep having this, like, Jesus is like flying through the air, like fighting dragons with his wand.
He's touching the barrels, making wine. And, no.
It's like he's Oprah. He's like, you get wine and you get wine.
Oh my gosh. This is why it's just really screwed up out there. But think about the pace. Think about the heart of Jesus, the man. Think about, he wasn't tentative. He was efficient. He didn't compete. This is one of my favorite amalgam of Scripture. Jesus slept and wept. I love that because he's in the boat sleeping. That's faith right there. And he wept over Lazarus. That's faith. That's a heart after his Father, who feels that way about us, about Lazarus. So it's like saying, if our Father in heaven, which is where Jesus was pointing, this is what he wants us to know, our Father. So that's how we become like him, right? That's the biggest thing. It's not about just being like, Harry Potter guy. Or a hippie in a tunic, with a couple of blind guys chasing him around. And where are you, man? And no, it's what he is the gate. He's the narrow gate. He's the way.
He's the door.
And we go through him. We never stop going through him. And the Father sees us through him. It's perfect. So when you think of it that way, but simplify this, it's already done. So we exist through him spiritually, and the Father sees us. He hears our prayers. It's not the heart is desperately wicked and deceitful above all things anymore. It's no, my heart belongs to him. And I expect him to do what he says because he's my Father, just like my brother's father, okay? And that's the role Jesus has in our big brother. He is the head. He is the church. We are the church with him.
Yeah.
It's the bride and the groom and all those things. I no longer call you servants or slaves, but friends. It's friends. So when you think about all the intimacy there, what is Jesus really pointing to every time? Our Father, right? He's teaching us to have a relationship just like he does. And through that, we will do greater things. And we can. And we can change the world. And we must. All right, so I know we're getting low on time.
We want to take a break here. Any final thoughts?
No. We'll come back.
All right, so we got to take. I'm just looking at the clock here.
Yep.
Friends, thanks for tuning in to Wake Up Our Faith. We're going to take a short break and be back for the second segment right after this. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Wake Up Our Faith today. Kevin and I appreciate you spending some time with us. We want to take a moment to recognize our corporate partners and those who help make this show possible. If you are buying a new home or if it's time to revisit your home and auto insurance needs, give TJ Dunn with Sheely Insurance Group a call. Sheely Insurance is an independent agency, which means they can quote and compare a variety of companies to make sure you get the right coverage at the best rate. And seeing that it's hurricane season for those in our Tri-County area, it's a great time for you to make sure that your coverage is right and in order. Reach out to TJ at SheelyInsurance.com or give him a call, 910-408-0300. Also, our good friend Chris Hutchins with Guaranteed Rate Mortgage, more than 25 years experience in the mortgage business. If you're buying or refinancing a home, make sure you reach out to Chris Hutchins at Guaranteed Rate, 910-344-0304. Staying on the real estate theme here, Rising Tide Real Estate Team is a full-service real estate team representing both buyers and sellers out of the Intracoastal Realty office. If you have any interest in selling your home or finding out what your home value would be, if you're moving to the area and you want to buy, 910-620-7177. Also, Physical Therapy Services of Wilmington. You can catch them on the web, ptservicesofwilmington.com. The Simmerman family has a wonderful reputation in the physical therapy industry here in Wilmington. Family owned and operated since 1983, multiple locations to serve the Wilmington area. PT Services of Wilmington, 910-763-8286. Dr. Chad Biggerstaff and his team at Blue Wave Dentistry are a comprehensive and personal dental office. If you have any needs in regards to finding a new dentist or you need to go get a checkup, make sure you schedule an appointment. Info at Blue Wave Dentistry or 910-383-2615, located at the entrance to Brunswick Forest. Dr. Greg Veeman and his ministry, Everlasting Strength. Dr. V actually this weekend sent me something he is going to be preaching, I think at Coastal Carolina Church, something like that. He's doing a series. If anybody wants more information on that, email us, info@uprint.life. But Dr. V's doing his thing. Actually getting ready to sit down with him for an interview, so pay attention to that soon. 910-256-2100. Freeman Landscaping is the largest family-owned and operated landscaping irrigation firm in eastern North Carolina, offering both residential and commercial landscaping and irrigation. 910-796-1166. Our good friend Christopher Riley with Cap Trust Wilmington is in the business of enriching the lives of clients and families through sound financial advice. They offer integrity and a commitment based in years of experience. Make sure you reach out to the team at Cap Trust Wilmington, 910-256-8882. And also, Century 21 Swalyer and Associates. This is a family-owned Century 21 agency, more than 30 years experience in southeastern North Carolina. They have a wonderful training program. If you're looking to get into the real estate business, reach out to Jeff and his team at 910-256-0021. Many thanks to all of our corporate partners. Now back to Wake Up Our Faith. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Wake Up Our Faith. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams in studio today. Many thanks for joining us. Joe Catanacci producing. You are listening to us today in a variety of ways, but hopefully on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. And wherever you listen to us, we encourage you to pass this along to family, to your communities. Spread the word. We actually are starting to, it's pretty cool, Kev. You know, we've been at this just consistently and faithfully for the last 4 or 5 years, off and on. Yep. Oh, Joe, we need a mic. Good to go. So we've been at this the last 4 or 5 years, and here we are now, and starting to get, I feel like, some good, healthy traction, good, healthy family, and it's kind of a testimony to what we're actually talking about today. It's not magical. It's not marketing.
Right.
It's by faith.
Yeah, I was going to say a second ago, I've been here 6 years, so we've been doing this pretty much from day one. We formalized it a few years back, but it's been 6 years since coming to your house at 5 o'clock in the morning. That was started about 6 years ago. So
with garbage half-calf coffee that she refused to drink. It's so funny now looking back on that, knowing you. I know for a fact when I was like, hey, man, have some coffee. You're like, what is this half-calf crap? I was like, I'm not drinking your coffee.
I want the real thing. Anyway,
Oh
but
man.
yeah, no, we've been at it a while, and it's amazing how fast it goes. But I think that there's a blessing in that. Is when you look at it going into it, you don't your mind, if you can let go of your own will, which is one of the things we teach, and understand the desires of your heart. It's like the birth pain, it's the thing that we see in scripture. It's painful, but then once the baby comes, you forget and you fast forward,
Mm.
and it's truly huge. So what we're doing is that. But anyway, just a side note, yeah, we've been at it a while, and that's how it works. That's how you get to know people
Yeah.
and how you can do things together.
Well, I think to that point, and in the field that we're in, right, helping
Hmm.
people uncover their purpose, helping
Right.
people live out their
Hmm.
passion, helping people discover their heavenly value, helping
Right.
people press into the desires of their heart, right?
Yeah.
So many people give up too quickly. I mean, it's just the
Right.
reality of it is
Right.
they stop. They,
Yep.
they they just quit because it
Yeah.
looks too difficult, because it
Right.
seems impossible, because all of the excuses,
Hmm.
and they just toss in the chips,
Right.
and they just walk away. And that's the
Right.
saddest thing, because there is required a level of persistence,
Hmm.
in faithfulness,
Hmm.
knowing that God is good enough to do exactly what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, he does what he says. He does it. It's a must. We can't ignore that. We need to get past he can do and he does do. He is the great I am, not the great I can.
Hmm.
And that is a journey though, and he's merciful and he's a good tutor. Um, so when we go back down to the human element of Jesus, what we see is someone who is operating as a vessel for the Father, for the Spirit of God to operate through him. So it was God doing these things through the willing heart of a man, and that is for us. That's what Jesus was showing us. We do not need to hang on a tree for the people of this world. He did that. Um, but what we do need to do is follow him in the ways that he lived his life. It doesn't mean wearing a tunic. It doesn't mean you got to get rid of your LCD screen or go back to, neighborhoods used to have screen doors. Now neighborhoods are LCD screens. It's okay. We're here now. Let's use it. But when you think about your relationship with the Father through the Son, somebody's sawing in the other room, and you
Putting the
told me
work
it was
in,
going to
man.
happen
Here we go.
because the squirrel. But you think about the childlike nature, and if you do watch the Chosen, watch that third episode in season one. But we need to kind of come up on, and this doesn't come from that. This was just my own thought, but it's funny. It's almost what happens. Um, you want to come up on this like you've discovered something in the woods
Mm.
when you're a kid, and it's amazing, and you just can't not do it. You want to be hungry. So what we do is we help people develop their hunger. But Jesus, that's what he knew to do for people is he challenged them and he pressed on them so that they would grow. He didn't just hand them something. Now he did meet their need, especially physically. But that goes back to teach a man to fish, feed him while he's learning. It's not welfare. It's what it means to be a Christian.
Mm.
And so when we look at that, what we see is this example of everybody's got a part to play in this, and it's insanely valuable. That's why God put you here. So to live like Jesus means to understand, to uncover that, to go after it with everything you got every day, Claire,
Hmm.
and to do it together.
Mm.
Together.
Yeah.
That's the church in action. That's the kingdom being advanced. Is there violence in that sometimes? But whatever the cost, we must do it because the highest price has already been paid. So our way of carrying that mission out is to get on with it and not sit around and sit around and sit around. you do need rest. You do need to understand and grow your relationship and hearing the still small voice. But once you grab hold of it, God will lead you over and over, and your hunger grows. And then it's like, man, look what I just found in the woods. This is crazy cool. I'm gonna go. And that's when you need your machete, right? Cut the kudzu and lead the way.
And go. It's funny you talk about coming up on something in the woods. This weekend, gosh, we were up in High Point with baseball stuff, and my twins, Grayson and Wyatt, who, if anybody listens or knows us, those boys, they ask questions later, and they just go. But they literally came up on a snake in the woods. They were in the woods, and they come up on this snake. And, you know, in hindsight, I got mad at them because they had other kids with them. But Wyatt just decides to pick up a boulder and throw it on the snake and run, you know what I mean? And it was funny because, like, I'm thinking about that then, you know, and I was like, what are you doing? If you see a snake, just leave it alone. Like, don't get close to it, right? But now you just helped me have a fresh perspective and just about that childlike curiosity, you know what I mean? And when you relate that to the Father, it's like, man, we've got to learn how to constantly be never surprised, always amazed, like you said.
Yeah.
It's just, oh my gosh, he's here. Look what he did. He did this thing. It's cool. It's exciting. Yes. You know, have that childlike exuberance. And we've tossed that aside for some jacked up, grown up, you know, crusty spiritual version or religious version.
Right. Well, remember this too, and I just wanted to pull this verse up. This is, I think it's Hebrews 4:15, but I'll just read it. We have to remember that Jesus, as a person, understood. He didn't come here to learn anything. Now, I'm not talking about as a child growing up. He did learn. He had to go through what it means to be a human. But I'm talking about from the perspective of being our God. This is wonderful. We need to understand this as our high priest, which he became. This says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weakness, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin." So we focus too much on the he did not sin. Yes, that's really, really, really important. So get a hold of that, agree with it, and then look at the rest of it. Empathy. He understood. He walked in our shoes. He knows everything. That means everything. It's a zero-sum game. That means not only does he know the things that we've struggled with, but he also knows how we feel. He knows what it means to laugh, to be intimate, to understand people. You know, did he stub his toe? Of course he did. Did he have a gassy day the other day, one day? Of course. And that's where we have to really understand that God did this for us, not only to save us, but to teach us. And what was Jesus, aside from Savior? A teacher. And I was telling Todd yesterday, I helped him, give him a ride to get his car or something. And I said, you know, you got something in common with Todd is he's making wood stuff. And I mean, it's some good stuff.
Yeah,
man.
it is beautiful.
Yeah. So he was a lot of things.
Carpenter.
As a person. You know, don't forget that. So,
yeah, I can guarantee you, Jesus didn't make some raggedy chair that fell apart. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was excellent.
Yeah. Well, even if you go back and watch The Passion, they portrayed him. He made this table and chair for his mom, and then he flicked water on her face.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
You know, that's beautiful. And we don't know if that exactly happened, but capturing that person,
the heart,
that's what matters. The spirit of it, not the letter, the spirit. And that's what he's after. That's why we have to be childlike intimacy, right? We have to be bride-like, adored, provided for, all of those attributes, and friend-like. Yeah. This is the way he sees us.
You know, it's funny. Earlier in the episode when you were talking about this, I thought about Jesus having endured all things, of course, and then you read that passage. And the one thing I found myself in my spirit asking the Lord, I'm like, yeah, but why did Jesus not have kids? Because that's a really hard part of all this, you know? And then it was funny because, like, I felt the Spirit just say he had lots of kids. You know what I mean? Like, the disciples were, you know, his kids. The children were his kids. The people, you know. He was a father figure to so many. And it was a big conviction for me because it was like, man, I wonder how he treated those people. I wonder how he interacted with them in their, impulses and in their impatience and all that kind of stuff. Because that's kind of the season that I feel myself in right now. And if somebody said, Matt, what's the greatest area that you need to grow in? It's probably that relationship to my children and how I am modeling that Christ likeness to them.
Sure.
In the midst of my frustrations, in the midst of their impulses, in the midst of them throwing rocks on snakes and all whatever stuff that they're doing, you know what I mean? And so good conviction to me that, he still lived that out as a man.
Yeah. Well, I had somebody say one time in a class, it was 20-something years ago, but, he pointed out Jesus's 3 mountaintop temptations, and he said, well, that was it. I'm like, no, that's not it. So we've got to quit looking at him just through a keyhole. We have to let him live through us and understand his heart. Did understand. So I would picture him having kids climbing all over him, but kids are not just little childlike mixes. They are you and me. We have that in us, and when he's talking about children, he's also talking about us and the child that we have been and maybe lost. So there's a lot to that, but yes, absolutely. I mean, it's like saying, well, he didn't understand marriage because he wasn't married. We're talking about the depth of the spiritual stuff, and so we can get off track with that. But yeah, he understood absolutely, and parenting is one of the greatest things, but it's not for everybody, and not everybody has to wrap their Christianity around that. Not that that's what you're saying, but I just want to encourage people who don't have children as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think Scripture's pretty clear about it. One of the things I did want to point out was when you look at his pace. Let's think about this. It's the first shall be last. So you got a guy who's born in straw poverty kind of mentality, and then he's the king of the universe. All right, so that is where God works from, right? You got to go back to the. So then you look at, let's take Peter, right? Peter did everything. You kind of feel this. It's sort of inferred through his personality. He did everything quickly, and he wasn't very patient, but he always had what?
Good heart.
A good heart. Yeah, I'd say even a great heart. But it's funny. Peter moved fast, and then as he matured, he slowed down, but more happened. So what you're doing is you're transferring things off of your own shoulders and putting them on God. It allows you to slow down, makes you more efficient. So I'm saying when you're imitating Jesus, when he's working through you, you become patient, but you accomplish more. You become more efficient. You are less tentative. You don't get stuck in the middle. You have direction and forward thinking. And that's what it means to be like Jesus. So if you're afraid to dream or you're just too lazy, then you're settling for something that's in between, and it's not good. It's not whole. So I don't want to preach, but just think about the trajectory. It doesn't look to our eyes like the world teaches us. It's the exact opposite.
Well, I mean, in God's economy, you slow down to achieve more, right?
Yes, exactly. That's the point.
You slow down to be more productive.
Yes.
And that's
how does it work?
Exactly. It's upside down, and that's the part that people don't understand,
right?
Because they want to call it. Well, you're saying it's magic. That's where
exactly
they go.
Right. Yeah,
that's where they go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I think today's. Let me see if I can pull it up. Today's text is. Yeah, let's see here. It says, God is, capital is, God is good, but life is fast. Now, that's true. But it says we can't afford to waste either one by drawing a line between them. So being like Jesus is destroying those lines. It's crossing them and getting rid of them, and crossing them and getting rid of them. So you don't have to live in these compartments, and you don't have to carry all this, and you don't have to to do things quickly. You have to let God lead you, and that may be, this way or that way, and it may be right for you and wrong for the next person. That's why no one else gets a say. That's why you have to learn to be firm and gentle and joyful. You have to learn where you're headed and have direction and go, knowing He's leading you there. And that's the difference. That's how you live that upside down life that makes no sense to anybody. Once you start down that path, God will show you more and more and more, and more puzzle pieces happen. So, not to go on and on, but that's
Well, the thing is we try to figure out the fifth step instead of being faithful in the first. And
Right.
and
That's
that's
right.
that's what we run into.
Yes.
Yesterday I had kind of an initial contact with this lady, and she had reached out, as many do, and I just sat down with her, and it was weird because, like, a lot of times, and you know this, when you're in conversation, sometimes the Lord gives you pretty quick clarity on why you're here and what's going on.
Sure.
But sometimes it's like chipping away at a concrete wall. It's like,
Right.
I'm getting nowhere, And it was that. It was like for an
Yeah.
hour, I was like, I'm not getting anywhere. But all of a sudden, the Lord was just gracious enough to give me picture. And it was tied to this event in her life when she was younger, and she was afraid to speak up. And she's in a situation right now where she's afraid to speak up. And it's just like the Lord blessed the moment to say, tell her
Sure.
this is that. And she needs to speak up, because she was asking about, well, what do I need to do here or here?
Yeah.
She was asking about step 5 and 6.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, we've got to address, this is the thing you actually need to focus on. Take this first step.
Sure.
And so it was really, it was encouraging to see how the Lord brought that forth. But that's where so many people get hung up, is
Right.
they just need the courage and the faith for the next thing in front of them. And
Right.
God unveils it from there.
Yeah, you have to go back to this. Discipleship requires seed technology. You have to go back and start with dirt and seed, and God does the how part, right? That's scripture, and it doesn't work any other way. So the longer you go on and trying to do things quickly, and who moved my cheese, and you're going down 58 mazes, you will eventually come back to this place if your heart is willing. Now, wisdom, you get there faster
Right.
by slowing down, but you become focused. You become efficient. That is Jesus standing before Pilate, where he just takes the power right back. And the world is that way. And I think the more we grow into that, the more calm we can be. The less I'll build you all structures,
Peter.
Yeah. But the heart is the key. And when you have that, God will work in that. Your behavior will follow, and you will change the lives of many, many people, and maybe a huge geography worth of people. And that's what we're called to do. That's being like Jesus. And we all have our own way of doing that no one gets a say in. And that's another issue that we have to, the 3 fears, and especially the opinions of others. But there's just so much to this. But the first step is understanding that God the Father sees you through the Son and cherishes you. He paid everything. You are priceless to Him. Now, therefore, you are priceless to His people. And if you're not, then, you're not around His people. So from that place, you can work. You can start to dig into the desires of your heart and let go of how He does it. Focus on why. That's Jesus all day long as a person. And so the magic, so to speak, will happen. People ask me all the time, well, how does this, and what about that? And that's crazy. And, you lived a crazy. No, I didn't. I just learned to trust Him. And what do you do with that? You don't stand on a mountain and go, look what I did. You say, come on, this is for you. Let's all go do that. That's where all this garbage that we see around us will fade away. Satan is a wet noodle, and we've got a machete, and we've got all the power. So, but we have to step into it.
Well, it's interesting as you said that. It's like the counterfeit version of the stuff we see around us is all rooted in behavior. It's all rooted in, well, do this. If you want to be a better person, if you want to be compassionate, do this, do this, do this. It's all rooted in behavior.
Right.
And Jesus was never rooted in behavior. He was always rooted in faith. It was always, always, always rooted in the heart and rooted in faith.
That's right.
So when you try to boil down your Christian practice into duty and habit and behavior, you're living the counterfeit version. You are
Right.
by definition a Pharisee. You are by definition missing out on Jesus, who looked at it from a heart perspective and a faith perspective.
Right. Well, we need to become his greatest investment because he's already made the investment. So we need to live that out. And that requires a process. That is the discipleship process. It doesn't last the same length for everybody, but it requires time. And that's why this Sunday church model thing isn't a bad thing, but it has become a mess. And people rely upon that exclusively, and it doesn't change people's lives. It doesn't disciple. But it doesn't take Peter from being, a guy ready to die for Jesus or cut off, Malchus's ear, to a guy who ran like crazy away from out of fear. But then you look at him later after Jesus, really dealt with him. And it didn't take much. And Peter's heart was convicted to the guy jumping off the boat when he saw him later. That's the way we need to be. And everybody has that in them if they have a heart after him. Our personalities are all different, maybe not like Peter. But that's a great view of recognizing that growing up equals slowing down. And it does not mean you're going backwards. It means you're actually taking more giant steps because God's doing the work.
Yeah.
And you're the vessel. Now you're bearing fruit into this place. And that's why it doesn't matter if something takes a year. If God's leading it, it will happen. So this young fella, who, we're very fond of, met him a few years ago, and he wasn't ready. And here we are, and he's ready. And he's a class individual. But that's what God's bringing us, those kind of folks, because we are them.
Well, and there's the peace of mind of knowing that we have to be willing to allow the Lord to prepare the hearts of individuals.
Yes.
And our own kind of, I wouldn't say struggle, but a reality for you and I for the last 6 years is there's been many times when we kind of feel rejected.
Sure.
Because people throw rocks and people
They
say,
do.
what are y'all doing? Or why are y'all doing it this way or whatever? And you and I look at each other and go, man, we're just trying to help people.
That's right.
But we also can't force people to be willing to step in to the process. So we've had to learn, by faith, just to focus on what he's given us and be faithful with that. And then he brings more and he brings more and he does it. So he is drawing men to himself, which he promised to do. And all we need to do is respond rather than to go out there and make it happen.
You take one step in the right direction. You remember the desires of your heart and you press into a vision. You do that through time in the Word. I've got this little book here. We're going to print more of them.
Yeah.
But I want to teach this to people. So if you want to jump into a mentoring where we just focus on studying and how to study, give us a call and we can work that out. This is amazing little piece of material here, but it's life-changing. We have a lot more that we're developing. This has been around a while, but I did want to mention that as an exclusive type mentoring focused just on that. And so give us a call if you want. But you have to go through the Word. You have to understand it. And then you have to understand how to develop joy. And then God sets the stage for the desires of your heart to unfold in front of you. It's worked out already, but you get to choose it. You get to step into it. You get to own it that way. And he goes at the right pace. What you don't need is somebody else telling you, here's what this means, or here's what you should do. A better friend is the one who's telling you to dig into the Father. In other words, what's the Father saying to you? Press on that, and then they come to it. God and you have the same idea, same goal. Just the enemy has masked it and hid it because people live by logic instead of the deeper thing. There is no breakthrough in Scripture that came by logic and common sense. It came at the behest of God's will, and God opened the doors. So he gets the credit for it. This is all of these people in Scripture demonstrated what a part of Jesus' personality, the part that surrendered to the Father and lived it out on this planet. That's our job. That's why we need to know who Joshua, who Esther, who Noah, on and on and on, Peter, Paul, Mary, these people are. They are us. We are them now. And if you don't understand that, then you will waste your life on a few good deeds and stacking stuff up and common sense, and you'll get stuck in the middle. Yeah. There is no middle anymore. Anyway, I'm preaching now.
You're good, bro. I just let it run. Letting it run. We do have to wrap the show up because of our time slot. But Kev, as always, man, thanks for pouring in. We appreciate you guys tuning in here to Wake Up Our Faith. Connect with us online, uprint.life, YOUPRINT.LIFE. See you next week.